Well, he was the first of 12 candidates to jump into the Boston mayoral preliminary election, daring to run before Tom Menino announced his retirement. Now, John Connolly is locked in a two-man race against Marty Walsh. And with less than 5 weeks before Election Day, the candidates are sparring over everything from campaign donations to police pay raises. And John Connolly is here to talk about all of that. Welcome, John Connolly.
Thanks, Emily.
Well, it was a crazy day everywhere today, in Washington with that incident and everywhere else. But there was another incident here that I want to ask you about. One-time mayoral candidate Mel King was arrested at Boston Housing Court today. He was blocking the entrance because his issue was this thing called no-fault eviction. And somebody that they knew in that neighborhood had been evicted from their apartment after trying to work out the whole deal. His point is, there's still a housing crisis here in Boston. Why are we evicting people who are trying to make a go of it? And is he right? And the second part of this, what are we doing arresting an 85-year-old man?
Yeah, that doesn't sound right to me. And Mel is right on the money here, and it's something he's talked to me about. We have a large equity gap in this city. We are more and more a city of the haves and the have-nots. And with our housing, we've seen, while we've built a lot of great affordable housing through a lot of great models, it doesn't nearly meet the demand. We also know we're entirely missing workforce housing and middle market housing in the city. And what we see are a lot of apartments that are sort of called market rate, but really are some sort of functionally luxury rate living in Boston. But we're not allowing poor people and working people to find their place, and the working poor to find their place in Boston. And Mel King's championed this issue for decades, and sadly, he still has to fight this battle.
And the second part of this, I mean, this was a stunt. Is this how we want our police force? And by the way, WGBH was there. We took that picture, and one of our reporters got shoved by the police officer trying to arrest Mel King. Really?
Yeah, I don't think that's a good use of our police department. We don't, this is a political expression, and I understand. I know Mel well enough to know he knew that would probably be the consequence, but he wants to draw attention to a really important issue. But yeah, no, that's probably not how we want to be deploying our police officers.
No, and while we're talking about police officers, we'll get right into the issue over this arbitration that came out at the end of last week saying that the police contract was not settled through negotiations with the city. It goes to arbitration. The arbiter awards them this fantastic sum of $80 million to be paid out over the next couple of years, which is going to cost the city that amount of money. But the question is, why would the police negotiate with the city when they know they have this other way out, which is arbitration? Why would they? What's the point?
Well, they don't. And I think we've seen that now through the fire contract and now through the police contract, that when you know as a public safety union that you have binding arbitration on the other side, there is nothing then that creates a circumstance to get the deal done at the table. Mayor Menino's negotiated successfully with 30 of our 40 city unions in this most recent round, some of which has just started. And the one common denominator, no binding arbitration there. Binding arbitration is preventing us from getting a deal done at the table. We have to make changes to it if we want this to work.
Well, Marty Walsh has actually voted in favor, wanted a bill to make binding arbitration hold. Would you, as a Boston City Councilor, currently vote against passage of this current arbitration?
I'll vote against this current police contract if it comes up for a vote. I'm hopeful that the two sides will go back in the room and get a deal done to give our police officers a raise, who've gone 5 years without a raise now, but to do it in a way that's fiscally responsible to the city. And that piece of legislation that Representative Walsh filed would take away the City Council's final review of all union contracts, whether through arbitration or done at the table. If we didn't have this power to review it, we would have no chance right now of getting a contract done that will probably work for both parties. Same story for that firefighters contract. The price tag total to both those contracts, based on what the arbitrator said, over $200 million.
Now, speaking of unions, you said that you would shake it up at the Boston Public Schools. This has been your mission from the start. But if I'm somebody who works for the Boston Public Schools, or I'm a part of the Boston School Teachers Union, why would I vote for you if I thought that my job was on the line and you're going to take away certain privileges that I have right now? Why would I?
Well, I have a number of Boston Public School teachers who support my candidacy. And I'm a teacher's best friend in this because I want to make sure teachers can go in the classroom and teach. I want to have a culture of development and support for great teaching and great teachers. And I want you to go in there and know that you're being supported because we're thinking about our children first. And when I meet the rank and file teachers who go in and day out into schools like my daughter's, the Trotter School in Roxbury, which was just named one of the best schools in Boston, they know that I'm committed to making sure they have what it takes to succeed in the classroom. My issue is not with teachers. My issue is with a contract that gives our kids one of the shortest school days in urban America and has hiring rules that are dictated almost entirely by seniority. So we're not thinking about great teaching. We're just thinking about length of service.
So WGBH was at school yesterday where both you and Marty Walsh showed up, and the general consensus is that he was more amusing and entertainment. The kids loved him. You were more serious. You were a better teacher. But one of the little girls, when asked who she would vote for, said, "I'd have to give that some more thought." What would you say to her?
The classic undecided voter, yeah.
How would you convince her?
Look, I would say that what I said to the students yesterday, they were from Orchard Gardens, probably the school that we're proudest of right now for everything they've done to turn around over the past 4 years. Ended up visiting President Obama to talk about their greatnesses. I want to give to every child in Boston what that young girl has, which is a school with a great principal and great teachers.
Which one was it? Was it the
Orchard Gardens?
Orchard,
yeah, and an extended school day so that they get arts and music, science, physical education, but more than that, they get the enriching activities like a Citizen Schools provides, and that was the partner who hosted that event yesterday. I want to make sure that every child can get the opportunity that that young girl has, and sadly, it's hit or miss in Boston Public Schools right now. Some of our schools do great things, and some of them, and really, quite frankly, too many of them don't.
So, John, you've been a lawyer longer, actually, than you were a school teacher. You only talk about your experience as a school teacher. Why don't you brag about being a lawyer? And what did you learn as being a lawyer that you could bring to City Hall?
Is there anything to brag about being a lawyer?
You know, I don't know. I've never been one.
Look, I'm proud of my legal experience. I'm proud of how hard I worked to get that law degree and pass that bar exam. But more than anything, my time as a lawyer, I worked in firms of all different sizes, but I ran my own firm with a couple of partners. We had a storefront in Brighton. We employed 3 people. We faced that balance of trying to grow the business, take care of your employees. Did a lot of pro bono work for Pride Lights Foundation, a gay rights organization, the Teachers Loft, a group that supported the development of teachers, ABCD. So I'm proud of my legal work and how I've used that degree to help people and impact community. But the reason why I talk about my teaching so much, it's the most impactful experience of my life. I went into the classroom every day for 3 years. Predominantly with predominantly children of color who were facing that achievement gap. And I saw the long odds that so many of our children face, and I carry it with me every day as a counselor and as a candidate for mayor.
All right, finally, you and Marty Walsh have been in a bit of a tete-a-tete about this whole thing about whether to accept the pledge, which is no outside money. Marty Walsh has said you've kind of flip-flopped on this, and he's refusing to take the pledge anyway. Here's what he told us last week.
They asked him the question, would you sign a pledge? He didn't. He said, I'm not going to sign a pledge. An hour later, he's on TV. He's saying he's going to sign a pledge. And then during the campaign, he got over $100,000 into his campaign or on behalf of him in the campaign. So
you're not signing anything?
I'm not signing the pledge.
Bottom line.
No, I'm not responding to that.
Signing the pledge. But have you?
So he seems that he will talk about anything except the pledge. I mean, a couple of misrepresentations there. I didn't receive any $100,000 from any organization. I said that, I had a crisscross on the pledge piece. That was the exact same day I said, please, no one spend any outside money on my campaign. Representative Walsh said if all the candidates would sign a pledge, he would sign it. Well, I want to sign the pledge. I want to sign the pledge so we can get the outside money out of this race.
Why not just take some?
Because you know what? It skews the whole debate, and it creates situations where candidates can become beholden or appear to be beholden. And that's why I don't want outside money in the race. And I say, let's have 2 candidates and 2 campaigns talking straight to the voters and get these outside groups out of the race. And Marty and I could go meet anywhere in this city, sign this pledge, and I think the people of Boston would love that because it would set the tone for the next 5 weeks, entirely focused on the future of the city.
All right, John Connolly, good luck to you the next 5 weeks. Hope to have you back a couple times.
Thanks, Emily.